Welcome back, everybody, to Plan's 10-Minute Podcast, your podcast for all things commercial and residential property related. I'm your host, Ryan Diver, joined with my co-host today, Nick Carlson. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We are with Plan Companies, the nation's #1 service provider for all things building services, janitorial, security guard, front desk, concierge, and maintenance services. And we have a very special guest today. It is Adam Chen from the Amenity Collective. Adam, how are you?
Doing very well, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And we got introduced to Adam because we saw him and the Amenity Collective were doing some really interesting things in the space, and we wanted to have him on to just have him explain more in depth kind of what it is that he's and his team are doing. So Adam, if you could just tell us a little bit more about the Amenity Collective and all the things you guys are doing.
Sure thing. So the Amenity Collective's main aim here is to ultimately solve property managers' pain points. We know property managers have to deal with a proliferation of vendors in managing their property's needs, specifically around amenity spaces. So what the Amenity Collective is trying to do is bring together, similar best-in-class service providers such as Plan Companies, American Pool, Heartline Fitness, and Live Unlimited, so that we can provide ultimately a one-stop shop to make property managers' days a little bit more efficient and easier to manage. One of our newest offerings that we're bringing to market is a piece of technology called Amenity Link. And Amenity Link is now in its second year in market, and it's being built, right, with direct feedback from some of the companies I mentioned's clients, right? We want to ultimately find technology that can further the aim of the Amenity Collective and make the property managers' lives that much easier and more efficient. We know they have to deal with a variety of different residents' needs day in, day out, and that can get quite complicated. So anything that we can do, to make their lives easier is what we're trying to accomplish.
And what functionality does Amenity Link offer? And who does it really serve? Property managers, the tenants, who?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So Amenity Link is an amenity management software. And we try to take a full building approach with this piece of technology, but there's a couple components there, and there's benefits for a variety of different stakeholders. I'll start with the residents. There are certain expectations, I think, that residents have in the modern age, where they expect, they live on mobile devices and they expect to interface with their property directly on a mobile device, right? The mobile device that's with them 24/7. So that's first and foremost. Is we know that properties need to differentiate themselves from their competition, and the best way to do that is to provide a good, solid resident experience. I would say the second audience that Amenity Link is really trying to reach is those property managers I mentioned previously. We know their days get quite busy, right? Dealing with fires left and right. So, we want to be able to give them a centralized place to manage those amenity spaces in their properties, whether that's down to specific residents in the households that they're a part of, or functionality about checking in and checking out of a certain amenity spaces, whether that be the front desk of the building, whether that be a pool or a fitness center. And that kind of speaks and translates into the third benefit, and those sitting more at the corporate level that oversee a portfolio of properties. And one of the best things that Amenity Link can offer is insight into space utilization in some of those shared spaces at properties. We know that properties left and right are making massive investments in building out those amenity spaces, right, to help differentiate, from their competition. And wouldn't it be great if those managing those portfolios understood the utilization of those spaces? You just spent $1 million on a new pool. How many of your residents are actually using that pool? And that's where we're trying to use this piece of technology to bind together, some of that, so that that you're getting the ROI that you've expected in making these property investments.
But then with that pool, like the residents, tenants could maybe reserve a time or something. Maybe they wanted to reserve an amenity, a room or something. Is that right? They could do that through this Amenity Link?
That's exactly right. It's very configurable and scalable to any individual property's needs. But basically, the way to think about it is any shared space that you want to track at your property, or any asset that you have that might be shareable amongst your residents. So it could be something as simple as understanding, how many people go to your gym. We could set it up in such a way where you want to control capacity in that gym, and we can limit that capacity. We can also use it as a simple check-in, check-out tool, or guest pass management if you have guests. Your residents have guests that like to visit them, and also use some of these shared spaces, such as a pool. It's also scalable beyond just the shared amenity spaces, and we're looking at how to better empower front desk operations ultimately. So if you have, a concierge at your property, one of the big pain points that we're seeing, and hearing from our clients is, package handling is a big pain point for property managers, especially in the modern age with Amazon, and you're getting
Absolutely.
hundreds of packages a day. Well, wouldn't it be great if there was a piece of technology that can help track, what's in your package room and which residents, need to go pick up packages. So if you're a property that has a lot of manual paper and pen processes, maybe it's an activity log as you have your security guard travel around your property, right? We're looking at all ways to bring this all into one technology solutions so that the property managers have one point of entry to manage all of this.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. It sounds like it has sort of, residents and tenants kind of in the forefront at all times, but while also simultaneously benefiting the managers by making their lives a lot easier as well. So it's sort of, you know, taking everybody's best interests at heart with this. I wanted to touch on, if you think that there's any predictions for the future. Obviously, this will elevate and advance a lot of properties by incorporating this technology. Is there anywhere you see that buildings are going to be trying to elevate further in the future, maybe like 5-10 years down the road?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately, and I'm sure a lot of plan companies clients deal with this same issue. And I mentioned it previously, in this conversation, but I want to dig into it a little bit more. It's a lot to manage. There are a lot of players in this industry, whether that is service providers or technology providers. And, in technology, we like to call, and some of the stuff on the technology side, the tech stack. So how many pieces of software does a particular property need to interface with to manage the total operations of their property? So that's what we're collaboratively trying to do at the Amenity Collective. We're trying to bring that technology component in with Amenity Collective. We're trying to bind together all the service delivery that we have with our, companies that we partner with, Planned, mentioned before, Heartline Fitness, Live Unlimited, American Pool, and the other subsidiaries that are part of our group. The more that we can centralize that operations, that's where I see the industry going ultimately, is consolidation of the proliferation of vendors and technology solutions. There's a lot of technology out there that are just that. They're just technology. And I think that's what differentiates us with Amenity Link, is that it's the partnership and it's the blending between operations, service delivery, and technology at one point for the property manager. Whenever they have a problem, giving them one place to call to solve all of their problems, that's where I see the industry growing. And I see that as a huge benefit and how we can differentiate ourselves at Planned, at Amenity Collective, and continuing that partnership better to ultimately deliver a better property management experience and a better resident experience.
You mentioned a little bit earlier, you mentioned about the consolidation of software packages into maybe one. Do you have a feel or a ballpark about how many packages your typical building's using now, and what the benefit could be of consolidation?
Sure thing. And so one of the things we pride ourselves is ultimately that engagement with the resident, right? And that adoption is what we track. But as a direct answer to your question, many properties might have digital signage at their property. That's a separate system. They'll also have systems that they handle rent payments and maybe HOA dues through. They'll also have communications platforms in which they can communicate with their residents. excuse me, they also have maybe work order systems in which they can, start tracking handymen on site, or maybe external vendors for that regard. And maybe they also finally have the ultimate master record of where they manage, who's actively a resident or a tenant in a particular building. Right there, that's 5, 6, and I've seen some properties up to a dozen different systems that you have to maintain. And oftentimes those systems are very difficult to integrate. They don't talk to each other out of the box, right? And unless you have deep IT experience native within your, property management company, that's often unattainable for a lot of these properties. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to reduce the number of touch points in that tech stack, the number of things that you have to maintain as a property manager. And the more that we can continue to develop this product, the more we'll be able to achieve that goal. And we're doing that by creating a good consultative relationship with our clients. We want to hear from them. What are their pain points? What are their needs? And that's the approach we like to take. We want to continue to develop this product, meeting the direct feedback and needs of our clients, not what we think might be a solution. So that's what we want to do. We ultimately want to partner with our clients and grow with them and become their technology resource.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds like a huge benefit for tenants and residents to come for the future. Adam, we really appreciate you for being on with us. Where can people go to find more about the Amenity Collective and all of their offerings from now in the future?
Yeah, we've got the amenitycollective.com website. And if you're interested in Amenity Link, it's AMENITYLINC.com. You can learn more about the product. And if anyone listening would love, a demo of any of this, or to have a one-on-one conversation, there's contact forms on both of those websites that will put you in direct touch with our group.
Awesome. We appreciate you so much for coming on. Everybody, this has been Plan's 10-minute podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your normal podcasts. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Much.
Thank you.